Hello and welcome to the Plat podcast. I'm here once again, Vancer and Wally, as always.
What's up? How's it going?
Going all right. We got a lot of Rocket League to cover today.
We
We
do.
took a week off because we wanted to include Oceania because we don't know a whole lot about them, so we figured we could do a full week just on them. So we decided to push last week's episode to this week and kind of combine the two. So we're going to start by going over the RLCS Season X Fall North American Regional Event 3, Stage 1, Stage 2, playoffs. We're going over the North American rankings going into the Major coming up. We're going to talk about the final week of North America Grid, the final week of the European Grid, which would be week 9. And then we are going to talk about the Oceania Fall Major that just happened over this past weekend. So a lot of Rocket League to get into. So we can start with North America Regional Event 3, Stage 1, Group A. So biggest thing, business as usual, NRG in 3-0 through the day, 9-0 through the games, sweeping everyone on their way through. Which, business as usual for them.
Yeah, there wasn't much of a surprise there with how well they performed. And then they got followed up by the next three best teams in the group with G2, Peeps, and Rogue.
Yeah, and I'd say probably in that order as well. I feel
Yeah, I
like
think the
Peeps are
Peeps and
probably
Rogue can
yeah,
sometimes go either way. But it's definitely their. It's like sometimes the Peeps are a little iffy. Like sometimes they play super well and then they can beat like a SSG type thing, but then other times they're like just not super at the height of their abilities. But I definitely think I would still put them above Rogue, yeah.
yeah.
But Rogue's been their Rogue's much more inconsistent. So
And then the next four teams to make it in were XSET, E United, Frontline, and BOSF Esports, which is the former Jamal Jabari roster. Um, Jamal Jabari getting picked up by them, and then Omelets was picked up by Ghost. So we have two new orgs that have now entered this scene. So
but yeah, I think the main not really I wouldn't say it was a surprise, but something that was promising from this group was the success of E United in this. Was nice to see that their acquisition of Tristan is still coming in to show that it was a successful acquisition. Yeah, so that was nice to see them. They made it through through round 5, so they squeaked through, but it was nice to see them make it through. So then they had a better opportunity to make it to the major
you could
because they were
argue,
on.
honestly, it looks like E United probably had the easiest schedule out of anyone, honestly.
I definitely agree.
The only team they played that made it through was Frontline, and
Yep.
then they beat Adept in round 5, and obviously the winner of that series moved on, and the winner got knocked out. But Unity got pretty lucky, but they needed a break, and so they got a nice way to get through into stage 2, and so that really helped them kind of climb ahead of these other teams I'm about to mention in Adept, Nefarious, and I think kind of Zookeepers was up there. Crimson Wings was kind of around there as well.
Yeah.
Adept was looking pretty good. They were like nearing, like moving in. If they had beaten E United, honestly, they were probably looking pretty good to make the major.
Also took Rogue to game 5.
Yeah, they took Rogue to game 5 for round 4. Like Adept was looking pretty good, and then of course after they get out here, they immediately then disband the team, which is kind of disappointing because I enjoyed watching them play. As far as Nefarious was another team that ended up finishing, I think, like top 20, and of course the top 16 teams move on to the major. We'll talk about that later.
Yep.
But Nefarious again also just missing out, losing 3 straight series, losing to NRG, but then losing to Matones and Zabumafu. So
Yep.
you know,
Not the best, but
yeah,
that basically covers Group A, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
So we can look at Group B. I felt like Group A was a lot more exciting, in my opinion.
I don't know, dude. Group B had
Game wise, there was nicer. There were a couple of nice matchups in Group B, but I think I like the teams like the
okay.
in Group A a little bit more. I think watching NRG's always exciting with how good Justin
That's fair.
is, and I just like him a lot. G2's playing
I
better
think they
than they
just
did at
had
the beginning.
Group
And then
B.
I'm a big Rogue guy, and I like the Peeps a lot as well. So I think it was more of that. But I think Group B, um, I think there's a lot more interesting teams that were exciting to put it, and I think they were much more evenly balanced in this one. I think
Mm.
there's like three clear top ones. I think we can all agree that NV, SSG, and KCP are the three best in Group B.
Yeah, and it's
And then I think
funny you say
Plot
that.
Twist, Ghost, Alpine, Pittsburgh Knights, Sonics are all on another level, and
Yeah,
they're all pretty close together in that level. So I think this one had a nut, and version one is also put in there, but they performed poorly. But it was interesting. It was a big surprise to see Plot Twist get a 3-0 in this one.
especially beating KCP and SSG.
Yeah, that was very impressive for them to beat both of them. Um, both forcing them to go to round 4 to get their wins, but they easily did for SSG and KCP. It was nice to see Ghost Gaming perform very well
Yep.
after barely losing to Alpine. I think the big thing I like about the Ghost about Ghost Gaming is big fan of the decal in the
Getting it
game.
back in the
So
shop.
I want it in the shop. I don't know when that'll happen, but it's also the former Omelet roster was so good in the summer, so it's just like them performing well here showed promising signs, but I hope it continues that they can try to get even better. Because I felt in the summer they reminded me of a lot of how I thought they would transcend upwards as top blokes kind of did. I felt like I saw it wasn't like fully similarities, but I felt like the hype around them was similar, at least
Okay.
for me. And top blokes is um, probably the fourth best team in Europe for me.
Yeah.
And Ghost Ghost Gaming Omelet are nowhere close to top 4 for NA.
Granted, that top looks roster did have some, you know, they only
Yeah, I
replaced
think
one
top
player
blokes
from the old Veloce
is def
roster, so they were
is
already
definitely
up there.
yeah. I think they're definitely you knew that they'd be better, but I just thought Omelet would trend more upwards than they have
Yeah.
because they have performed honestly fairly poorly previously to this. Overall, it hasn't been the best thing for them, like overall,
I wouldn't even
but
say poorly, just disappointing. Because I feel
yeah,
like
that's how.
they never play like bad, but they just never seem to get the wins they need to.
Yeah, so it's nice that they got 3 wins. None of them were super amazing wins, but they did beat 2 teams that did make it through in Stromboli and Zero Issue. Um, there's teams that you usually don't see, and taking Alpine to Game 5, Alpine can on their day be absolutely incredible. So it's nice to see them perform well.
I think more like the teams that moved on, obviously important. Alpine and Stromboli getting their first real shot at a regional event, and then all the other teams are fighting to get better placement for the playoffs and then for the major eventually. But the teams that I want to look at once again are the teams that missed out. You see Pittsburgh
Yep.
Knights losing to Alpine. I feel like those two teams are constantly playing each other in big
Yep.
games. Down to Earth was like right on the cusp of that top 16. They lose in round 5. Sonics were looking pretty good over the course of the day. Their series against Version 1 was a lot of fun. And then they just get stomped by Stromboli.
Mm-hmm.
um,
And then version 1 not
two
making
teams
it.
that I predicted to make the major in Version 1 and 72 PC both just tank and get swept in round 4. Like it's there were some teams that like you were hoping to step up and really kind of solidify their place in the region and like kind of come back to form in 72 version 1 and Sonics can't do it. A down to earth roster that's sort of on the cusp. I still don't even know a lot about them. And if they had made the major, that would have been huge for their just like their stock in the team, like people knowing about them and learning their team. They just miss out, so they're kind of still kind of where they are. Pittsburgh Knights, you want to see them kind of solidify their place in there. But I was excited to see Zero Issue come through because I want to say Zero Issue. That was the um, what was it? The old name of that roster? Because I think they just changed names. Infinite Shots. Yeah, that's what I thought. The full Mexican team. So I thought that was really cool that they made it through. Um, so another exciting day for Group B with a lot of teams. Like, I think this solidified version 1s and 72, and I think Down to Earth as well. I think Down to Earth was still in the race at this point, but I think version 1 and 72 were both out by the end of this day, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate for those two teams and for me because I predicted them. The only other prediction was Plot Twist, and they swept through, and then I felt like a genius until the rest of the games happened. Stage 2 then. Um, and right there we saw the top 8 teams moving on. G2, SSG, both in sweeps. Rogue, NRG, Envy all in 3-1s, and Kansas City, E United, and Peeps all finishing the day 3-2.
I felt like this was like, if you look at all these teams, that this 16 that made it, it seemed like the teams that you would expect to make it through did.
Yes.
I didn't really get shocked by anything. The only one that you and I both agreed with that was a little not super predicted by everyone was United over Alpine. I think that's the only one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always never fully confident of Alpine in any tournament.
Always never fully confident.
Yeah. I'm never confident that they
Yeah.
can make it through to anything. They're up and down as well. Like they
I mean,
it's tough who they played, but
yeah.
you got to be, if you can't beat any of them, then there's no point in you making it to the playoffs because you're going to instantly be swept.
I mean, yeah, they got swept, got swept, 3-1, got 3-1. Like, it was all
Yeah, like the round
polarizing
5
hockey
matchups
league.
were basically a waste. Two sweeps and a 3-1. Usually it's like those will get some game fives. Nowhere close.
Especially with, playoffs on the line.
There wasn't many games specifically that were out of this world. I thought it was the Space Station beating NRG 3-1 was a pretty handy victory. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Same with G2 3-1 over Envy. But and then there's a 3-0 sweep by Rogue over Peeps. But that's, I think I tout that more. And Rogue also swept KCP.
Yeah.
So Rogue did really well that day. And I remember checking out the Rogue NRG series, and it was just like the difference in quality was mainly the big difference. It wasn't even that Rogue was super, super bad. I think they won the first game and just lost the next 3, but I could be wrong. But I don't have much else to say about stage 2. It was just the teams that you'd expect to make it through did.
I mean, yeah, honestly, it like maybe the shuffling obviously through the top 8, but you look 9 through 15. That's if you told me to rank those teams, that swapping Alpine and Ghost. Outside of that, I think that's probably the order I'd put them in. Maybe probably Exet over Plot Twist as well. But like that's basically in an order that I would put them in as well. For the most part, obviously a little bit of tinkering here and there. Plot Twist coming off their super dominant day just didn't play as well. I don't really know why. If it was they just had one pop off day, or if they got back to form and then immediately lost that form, or what, or if they finally got back to form and then just had an off day, or what it was. But losing to, they then lost to, what was that, BOSF? Yeah. BOSF, sweeping Zero Issue, getting swept by United, and getting swept by Ghost. So finishing the day losing 6 straight games is pretty rough for Plot Twist, but they made their mark and they made it into the major, so I guess their work is done for now. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. I feel like the stronger 8 teams made it through, and I think the difference between E United making it over Alpine is just how they both played against the Peeps. E United sweeping the Peeps and Alpine getting 3-1 by the Peeps. If you can beat the Peeps, you're making a top 8. Basically, is what it seems like. Because they're a lot of the keepers around that 6 to 8 spot are the Peeps, it seems like. And then with that, we can move on to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
In the quarterfinals, we had Rogue KCP, which was a 3-0 sweep for KCP. Space Station, a sweep over E United. Envy, a sweep over NRG. And the first non-sweep of the day, G2, 3-1 over the Peeps.
I think the only one that I thought was that I saw and was interested by was the Envy over NRG in a sweep. I don't think anyone really could have predicted a sweep. Usually those matchups go really deep into a game 5
Yeah.
fairly often, and lately it's been more NRG's way, but I always think it's a toss up just with how Turbo plays against them. But it looked in the first game, you just had full confidence that Envy was the better team there, and NRG just never got going for it. They got they got shut out, and then they scored 3 total goals in 3 games.
Yeah.
But they were all 1-goal games, so they're all super close. But it just always felt like Envy had the grab had control.
Yeah. It looks like Energy was getting better as the series went along, but so was
Yeah,
Envy.
you could definitely tell that RG was getting more into the series, but so that overtime was real. I felt like if that overtime went the other way, there was a shot of a reverse sweep,
Yeah.
just on how well NRG was playing. But they held on and they squeaked out in a 2.5 minute overtime. But Envy looked real good right off the bat there.
Yeah. And I mean, Championship Sunday Turbo is just like another level, no matter
Yeah,
what team he's on. Yeah, I mean a 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 in overtime. Like both teams were just getting better and better as the series went along, at least offensively.
yeah,
You can see that. Um, that's I don't really have a whole lot to say about the quarterfinals. I mean, they were all sweeps, so it's like anything I can say about one series, I feel like I'd say about the next one. I just feel like
yeah,
the better team was just winning in a lot of these situations. Um, the Peeps G2 series was pretty funny because it's like, in overtime goes to the Peeps, and you're like, oh, the Peeps could surprise G2 because they've been playing really well recently. And then G2 scores 8 goals in the next game. And then at that point, I was like, G2's going to win this series. Whether it's done in 4 or in 5, I was like, G2's got it. With a game like that, that's so demoralizing for the Peeps. And just so much confidence for G2. And when they're playing with confidence, they're playing well. And then they, went on to beat them and then went on to Envy in the second round. As for the second round, uh, a super exciting series. Both of these series were a lot of fun. With the SSG KCP, it went to game 6, KCP winning 4-2 over Space Station in the series. 4 of those 6 games all go to overtime. And the only ones that didn't, 2-1 final, 2-0 final. So they were still close games. There were no blowouts in any of these.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And that series was definitely a lot of fun. Yeah, I was surprised that SSG didn't win it. Not in the sense like going into it, I thought SSG would win it, but there was because they KCP got that 2-0 lead, and then SSG canceled it back out. But 2 strong overtime wins, quick ones, but 2 strong overtime wins to finish off the SSG team was pretty impressive by KCP. It's like so amazing to see how much better they've gotten just in the
Yeah.
past few weeks. It's pretty insane. And it's a lot of fun. They're so much fun to watch. I'm a big Rapid and Memory fan on that team. Both of them love using those dominances.
Yeah, coming in looking at KCP, I had very little faith in this roster because I thought I'm pretty sure it was the old flight roster, and I
Yeah,
think even Seabass is still a sub. I don't know if he is anymore, but he was a sub at the time, so I just thought it's just the old flight roster, and flight was not good last year. How much difference is a brand new player in beast mode going to do? Like, he has no experience.
yeah. Seabass is technically still on the team. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, and so I was just like, it's just flight with a new player, and I don't even know how good he is because I hadn't heard of him yet. And clearly, beast mode has like transformed this team. He's the consistent offense that they need, and that allows Rapid and Memory to really shine where Seabass couldn't. And it's just a mechanics thing as well, and it opens up so much more space for his teammates, and they can play with a lot more speed and a lot more energy. And I think the team synergy is just a lot stronger. I feel like they play better as a team now than when they did
yeah, I
last
agree.
season. And apparently that's all you need. And
Mm-hmm.
a new branding in KCP, and they're now one of the top teams in North America. Especially after beating a team like Space Station, like that's
Yeah, I mean,
that's a
honestly,
big
they're
statement.
top 4.
Yeah.
I would like them over G2.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the day because you never know with G2. Honestly, there are days when G2's looking like the number one team in North America, and then there's days where G2's not even looking like a top 8 team in North America. But
Yeah.
I feel like their consistency is better than G2, but G2's ceiling is higher, so it's always impossible for me to pick between those two
Yeah.
teams.
I know what you mean. I think with so much Rocket League, I go with the consistency over the
You
ceiling.
make a good point. So yeah, I'd probably say KCP
But
as well.
it's definitely close. I think
Yeah,
I don't,
they're
I still
close.
feel like that there's like a little bit of a gap between those two in SSG and NRG and NV.
Yeah, I feel like those three are still like the strongest. Like they've proved that they can be consistent. Like when Space Station isn't playing at the level we know Space Station can, they still make it to the semifinals. Like
Yeah.
that just shows like how good these teams are. Like NRG wasn't playing up to their level as well. Still made it to the quarterfinals and lost to the
Agreed.
eventual winners. So it's like, you know, we have such a high expectation for the top 3, top 4 teams that it's like, you know, it's hard to live up to that ever. And the fact that they managed to do it for most of the time just shows how good they are. Um, then we can move along to I think my favorite series of the tournament was a rematch between G2 and Envy, and this was a lot of fun. Um, I was really interested to see how this would go because I really wanted to see G2 KCP in the final because both of those two teams play with a lot of speed, and I wanted to see who would top out the other. And like we were just saying, we don't know really who's it's like G2 KCP are kind of like flip flop constantly, and who I think is
Yeah.
better. So I really wanted to see them play each other. But then Envy pulls out 3 straight wins, scoring 4, 8, 11 goal, outscoring G2 11-3 in the final 3 games. It was Envy's defense. Envy's defense is so strong, and you can see that against Energy. You can see it against G2. And it like their defense was just getting better and better and better. And the more their defense was playing strong, the more G2 was trying to score, which left more openings in the backfield. So it's like if you can really frustrate G2 early and keep them from scoring, you can just start to like flip the series around, and it can snowball really quickly against G2.
Yeah, I think the G2 KCP series would have been a lot of fun in the final, but Envy's defense, and you even saw it in the quarterfinals, is just like top notch. And they just continued it into the G2 series, excluding the 5-3, because 5 goals is a lot to give up.
Yeah, I think that was one game where just G2 played really, and it's funny after that.
JNAP went off
Yeah,
in that game. I remember watching it.
after that 5-3 game, I was like, okay, now we've got a series because G2's hitting their stride, and then game 3 comes, like they only scored 2 goals, but they still won the game. So who knows? They could this could keep going, but then game 3, it Envy
Yeah,
shut the door on them as well as scoring 4 goals. So it was looking really really good at the time the series was tied 2-2, but I was leaning more Envy at the time, and that
yeah, I
shows.
agree. And then the final was a lot of fun as well. I think we both enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Uh,
going into this, I'm wondering who did you have winning this series when you saw these were the two playing each other?
um,
Because I
I
can't
think I
remember.
had Envy winning it.
I think I had Envy in 6 was my prediction because I thought Envy just beat a fast team in G2. KCP is another fast team. Envy's defense is strong. I just had a feeling that they were going to take it in 6. I would have been right had they won it in overtime, but in Game 6. But KCP got the overtime winner to force Game 7.
Yeah, I think the Envy over NRG really sent me over it. I
Yeah,
think even though KCP just usually has SSG's number, so I don't usually take that win as like it's still a super amazing win, not to discredit it, but it's not like Envy over NRG recently had been basically NRG's to lose, and they did.
yeah,
And then I agree with you that Envy being able to beat G2, especially that handily, was very impressive as well.
but yeah. The series was fun. It was a lot of back and forth. Envy winning the first 2, then KCP. Envy going up 3-1, 2-1 overtime wins for KCP to force Game 7, and then Champions Field 0-second goal to end 1-0. It
Yep.
was pretty insane.
Yeah, it was a super exciting game
The
and series in general.
I want to say it was game 5. If Envy had lost this series, game 5 would have haunted them because in overtime, I think every single player on Envy hit the post or crossbar in overtime alone.
I
And
remember that.
I was just thinking, and I was like, I thought Envy was going to win. I was like, oh, my prediction's wrong. Then KCP won. I was like, oh, my prediction can still be right. We go to overtime, and then KCP scores 12 seconds in. I was like, it forced a game 7, but my prediction was wrong, so I was conflicted. But
Hmm.
it was a fun series. I think I wanted KCP to win because I like that team more. I prefer flashier teams, but a fun series regardless, and Envy definitely earned it.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I think my like enjoyment was like it'd be cool to see KCP win it, but I was just like with how well Envy was playing, I felt like they would win.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the final North America regional event. So now we're going to talk about the teams that are now in for the fall major, which is soon to come. So the North American Fall Major, top team, Team Envy, with that 801 points. Really, they've now got a 50-point gap on NRG and a 100-point gap on Space Station. So it's Envy is now like a strong number one in terms, a 100-point lead on third place is looking really good for Envy right now. Like further and further down the line, this will be really helpful. So, and consistently getting better. 200 points in the first, 250 in the second, 351 in the third. Like they're getting better and better with each
Yeah,
regional
they made it
event.
to every semifinal,
The only team
and they
to
made it
do
to
it
the
is
final twice.
yeah. So it's looking good for Envy right now. They're showing that consistency and the ability to win when they need to in those final days. And then I'm just gonna run through the next 16. We got NRG at 751 points. Actually, there'll be something on screen here, so I'm just gonna say the teams: Envy, NRG, Space Station, and then a big jump to get to KCP, tied with the Peeps, G2, Alpine, Rogue, Frontline, Pittsburgh Knights, XSET, E United, the Sonics, former Jamal Jabari roster, BOSF, however you want me to pronounce it, Plot Twist, and then rounding it all out is the Omelette Ghost Gaming roster. Just missing out by 30 points was Down to Earth, and I think we said they were in a round 5. So it's like if they had won, yeah, they made it to round 5. If they had won that game and made it to the next round, they could have made it in. 72 PC, I think, lost in 4. Version 1 lost in 4 in the first round as well. They could have made it through had they played better. Nefarious, a similar situation. It's really unfortunate for those 17 through 20 teams because they really, they had, it was all about them. All they had to do was win and they could make it to the major, and they just weren't able to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in the major.
And then Adept as well. They're down in 39th right now with 0 points because the team disbanded, but moments before that they had 110 points, which would have placed them between Nefarious and Version 1. So a lot of those teams just missing out, and those are going to really hurt those teams later down the line, especially with this fall major upcoming worth double points, and that's going to be huge for separating the top of the pack from the bottom.
So, absolutely massive.
Any big surprises here for you?
In
terms of who made it or just placement in general?
Not particularly. I think there's a big gap. I think Plot Twist being that low is pretty surprising. I think they're a little bit better than that. But Sonics going from 150 points in the first one to 2 straight 30s and squeaking through.
Yeah. I mean,
that
it
was
looks
pretty
like
surprising.
that's all you need sometimes. I mean,
30 is pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, 30 is bad, but I mean, XSET had 20 in the first event, and they made it through.
XSET's a little bit special in my opinion, where because
did make a roster move. That's true.
They had T. Carell,
yeah,
T. Carelli for the second one, and they did super well. Not really. I think Rogue's better than Alpine, but Rogue played bad. They haven't done super amazing in these. I think it was pretty interesting that I didn't know prior that Envy had made it to two straight to the semis, the finals, and then won it. So that was
Yeah.
pretty impressive to see them progress up there. Because I thought it would still be like NRG or SSG would still have the advantage over them, but not much. I think I feel proud that I called E United to make it through.
Good call. Yeah.
But other than that, not many big surprises here. I think I like that Ghost made it because I like the decal. We know that, but other than that, no, not much. Not much to really
Yeah.
surprise me.
I think, it's where, like, for the teams that just missed out, it looked like they hit their peak in round. Like, the teams that barely squeaked by and barely missed hit their peak in the first week, like with the Sonics, 150 points, 30-30, squeak through. Version 172 PC, 70 points each. 30 points each, 20 points each, just miss out. Like, they got worse and worse each regional, and because of that, they just missed out on the playoffs. Like, if they had just done a little bit better in both series, like, if they had just won, like, one or two more games in both, they would have been through, instead of an omelet or a plot twist. But unable to do that, and plot twist getting better, 30-70-70, 30-30-100 for Ghost. Really, like, it really shows, like, just making it to that next day, even if you do it in 5 games, or even just winning, not getting swept is also just, like, so, like, any little win you can get is so huge when it comes down to, like, this close. X at 20 points, but then they go out and make a roster move and then immediately get 150, and that, like, really solidified them up there. And then they
Yeah,
had just a decent day, 70 points for the fall, or for regional event 3, and
yeah.
they're in cleanly. You just need, like, one good regional event and you're going to make it through the major. And a lot of teams that missed out just didn't have that one strong regional, because you either need one strong one or good consistency, like a Jamal Jabari who went 50, 70, 70. But if you can't keep that consistency, you're not going to reach it.
Agreed. So who do you got for this big old major? It's just a straight answer. Whoever the number one. Who you think?
That's you, I mean, my if I had to pick one team, it would probably be NRG, just
Okay.
because, and it's either NRG or Envy, because I feel like NRG shows up in in like big moments in playoffs, in whatever, in worlds. NRG will show up to play. Justin especially, and Squishy as well. I mean, literally the entire roster like knows how to perform on a big stage. But at the same time, Turbo knows how to perform on a big stage even more so. So it's I think for me it's like if Envy and NRG play each other, whoever wins that series will win it all. Is I think what it comes down to, because if one team is good enough to beat the other, they're good enough to beat any other team right now.
I'm gonna make a bold prediction right here.
Ooh, you going Sonics?
I wish that would they just what if they swapped back in Shock and he just went on a tear?
On, I would be so down for that. Like, you say it
Um,
jokingly, but I'd be absolutely down for that.
I think big bold Eve right here. G2 dub.
All right, I can see it.
I think just being on that with just I think the cohesiveness of that team could really shine in a big major.
Actually, you mentioned G2 and their cohesiveness and being in a team house. Space Station is now in a team house.
Yep, yep,
That
yep.
could. I have no idea how, because we haven't seen enough. Like, we know G2 does perform better in a team house. We don't know if Space Station performs better, but I assume it'll at least be some improvement, because if G2 can be night and day with it, if it improves SSG even a little bit, they could take it as well.
Yeah.
So I
You
say
swapping it?
I
You swapping it?
no, I still think NRG or Envy, but I'm gonna put a little asterisk for Space Station. Keep an
So you
eye out.
named three teams. So
Yes,
you're like
well, I'm
me
gonna name
now.
the top three teams. Yeah, because why wouldn't
You're like
I?
me. Yeah.
If I have to pick one though, I'm picking NRG, just
Okay.
because
Yeah,
I
I know.
think I
I
think
know.
they can do it. But I think the X factor is the team houses. Um, if a team is going to beat Envy or NRG, it's going to be one of the team houses. I feel like, because
Agreed.
yeah, it's proven once to work, and if it can prove it again, it I'm rambling. You know what I mean.
Yep. We can go to the. Let's go to the grid.
Okay, North America grid for week 9.
We had a NRG win over the Peeps.
Yeah.
Surprising to see Sonics and E United make it to the quarters. I mean, the grid's always the
version 1
toss up.
made it to the semis.
Yeah, and version 1 beat E. But I mean, they played E United, so it's like not the E United's pretty good, but I think E United's still on the cusp of being something I can 100% respect to be amazing.
To get there, E United beat the Knights. They got a forfeit win over Space Station because they were moving to that team house.
Yeah, Space Station didn't play. That's why Sonics got through them, and then they were able to play.
They beat Omelette and then made it through.
And that's it. But yeah, version 1 beating KCP was pretty interesing.
I mean,
and then
Rogue,
KCP
they beat 2 top 5, top 10 teams right there.
Then they beat United, and then they played not bad, and their defense was pretty poor against the Peeps. But Rogue made it through. They beat Xset. Not much to say. I didn't really watch a lot of this. I watched a little bit of the Rogue games, but not just because I think watching Rogue's fun because I like First Killer. But other than that, there's not much else to say. It was a nice win by NRG.
I'm surprised version 1 managed to beat KCP. Wow, it looks like because I noticed during the regional event as well that like version 1 was having some big time defense issues. Like they're constantly just centering the ball in their own net or losing it on the backboard. Like version 1's defense just isn't good right now. And I feel like if they can improve that, put Torment back in his like goalie position basically, and just have him just play all the defense and let AXB and Gimmick just kind of do whatever up front, maybe it'll improve. But like Gimmick especially had some like shoddy defense over the last like 2 weeks. So to see them beat KCP is surprising, but it looks like they faltered. They didn't play too poorly. I mean, Peeps scored. They had a 4-goal game and a 5-goal game, which are pretty high. But other than that, they played pretty well, especially through 6 games. It's I think it's definitely a good sign for version 1. Regardless,
yeah, this also determined who qualifies for the winter grid as well.
Yeah.
So E United will not be in the winter grid.
Yes.
Neither will Omelette or Alpine.
Interesting.
Well, they go to the qualifiers.
Wait,
but
Alpine didn't make it? That's surprising.
They got, out of their 9 weeks, there's 4 10s, which means they got instantly out.
Yeah, they went instantly out this one. They got swept
but
by
G2,
NRG and swept by Omelette.
But G2 claimed it for the win there on that.
Yeah. So, and then you have NRG winning all, running through G2.
I'm excited to not see Charlotte Phoenix in there ever again.
Yeah, Charlotte Phoenix did not perform well.
They're bad.
At all in the grid. I just feel so bad for that roster. They're constantly, like...
I feel bad for Dapper.
They get these good players, and then they can't win, so they leave and go play on a team that can win. But then Charlotte Phoenix can't win because all their good players keep getting taken. They just keep having to shuffle people in. Like, yeah, and then Dapper's a new addition there, and then I mean Shadow's looking good too, but who knows, he'll get poached one day probably too.
Because Turo was their entire team, and he's the GOAT. But that's pretty interesting. Then we can look at the EU grid. Funny little tidbit from the EU grid was I was watching the Top Bloke stream because I just thought it'd be fun, and it was right after they got swept by Galaxy Racers. The commentators were complaining, and it was like, why are they playing so bad when this is the last time we get to see them play in the grid for weeks, and it's like the only time that it's like a casual type thing to watch them play Rocket League. And then there's not a lot of people that were watching, and there were under 50 people watching, and the coach was in the chat or whatever, and he was just like, we're not in comms. And I think it was Archie. He was using a battle bus or something, so he was just messing about. But it was pretty entertaining. And so they were complaining, and then they lost 5-0 to Fadeaway in the losers round. And then they turned it on, but then got reverse swept by Barca. But they started playing better so that the viewers could actually enjoy watching something, because they were going to be swept by Fadeaway if they played that way again. It was bad. But overall winner was Giants. It was nice to see them come back, because this was shortly after they had a disappointing time in the regional event because of talks. So it was toxic talks,
Yeah.
but it was not there wasn't much to say. It was nice to see Galaxy Racer. I think they're a fun team. They beat Guild and they lost to Liquid, but this this playoffs was pretty teams that you wouldn't usually expect to be there. Dig's pretty
Diggy
good, but
boys.
they've had so many ups and downs this
I wouldn't
seasons.
even say they're
Well, they
good.
also this was Jesse.
Did Jesse? Oh, that's right. He did play in this.
Jesse played. So that was
Yikes!
pretty
And they
funny.
beat
I think he did.
Vitality with Jesse.
Yeah. They
That's
beat
really
Vitality with
sad.
Jesse. They uh they beat Triple Trouble as well with Jesse, but then
Yep.
got absolutely slapped by
Yeah, I mean that's to be expected. I mean, even though Jesse is a mechanical god, like even he can't keep up
it was
with
pretty funny
Giants.
watching the Johnny Boy Mechanics thing where he ranked pro players and he put Jesse in the lowest category possible. Um, but that was pretty funny. But other than that, not much else to say
I think
about the.
a pretty exciting series is probably BDS Giants, both coming off sweeps in the quarterfinals, so both like clearly on top of their game.
Yeah, I
Um,
debated watching that one, but then I was like, I like Arju, so gotta go
I mean, yeah,
boy.
and then going game seven, and I mean, a lot of these were high scoring. 5 goals for Giants in game two, 7 total goals in game three, 4-0 in game six, and then 6-1 in game seven. So it was a lot of high scoring games. I mean, like Giants were just scoring a ton all day, and they were running Dignitas out of there with 13 goals in 3 games. Meanwhile, BDS had a much harder time with Barca winning. Oh, I think actually I watched that series, the BDS Barca series. Yeah, every single game went to overtime. That was really painful for Barca, especially a 6-5 overtime. That one was rough. Especially as like someone I was definitely cheering for Barca more because BDS is winning everything right now, and I really like all 3 players on Barca. I just wanted to see them win at least one game, but it was pretty brutal. But yeah, Giants winning it all. Always nice to see as another like Giants supporter. Um, another good week. Didn't matter nearly as much because it was the final week.
Yeah, so the teams that are going to be iffy if they make it into the closed qualifier for the grid. We know Chalk's already done because they disbanded.
Yep.
Thank God. They were just a waste of space on here. They literally never made it. They never won a game,
Yeah.
a series, ever.
Who did they get replaced by?
Fadeaway. Fadeaway came in
Fadeaway.
for
Okay.
that. And they were talking about it in the top blow screen. It's like, this team hasn't even been here. And they're, but Dignitas and Endpoint, both iffy to continue through the grid.
Yeah, I'd be kind of surprised if the Diggy boys come back.
I think they have a shot, but you never
Yeah,
know. They've been
especially
playing a little bit better
making the
lately, but
quarterfinals that final week.
surprising to see Endpoint not. But they had it. They tied Barca, and just Barca edged them out somehow. But it'll be interesting to see who makes it in the grid because it'll be nice to see. I like that they're doing different teams for each section of the grid because it'd be annoying to just have all the same teams. So you can get it.
Yeah.
Maybe the Rick's GGs could be there, so we get some apparently Jack every week.
Ooh,
That'd
that'll be
be
fun.
pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I guess that's all for E United. Or E United. Jesus, I'm tired. That's all for the EU grid.
Yep, it's all. That's all we have for the western, like all the stuff west of Oceania.
Yep. For this, I don't think you watched. You said you watched like one game all
I
weekend.
watched one series
There you
of the
go.
Swiss, and I didn't touch the playoffs.
I
You just
watched.
gave me updates.
I watched a little bit of it. It was. I'm not super familiar with the Oceania region. I know I've watched Renegades, Cringe Society, Ground Zero. I think I basically the top 5 teams. I think I watched a little bit of Hazard. Like I know a couple of the players here and there, but never like sat down and watched a lot of it. Um, Coming into it, I knew Renegades, Cringe Society were like the top 2 teams. So seeing them play and seeing them play against other Oceania teams I hadn't seen before was really fun. So if you didn't catch any of it and you haven't seen any OCE play, go watch it because you'll just see some of the top teams from Oceania play each other. So they had their this was actually their major. We should mention that this was their fall
Yeah,
major.
this is the major event for them.
So they
They
had
canceled the entire big LAN event,
yeah
obviously because of the coronavirus. But so now they decided to put the Oceanic one as its own weekend. We'll be covering the this coming weekend will be the Swiss stage of the 16 teams, 1 day per region for EU and NA, and then that'll decide who makes it to the final playoffs of the major, which is in another week. So next
yeah
podcast will be about that. But this one they did it in 2 days. It was something I forgot was they play later for us.
yeah.
So I was just hanging out, and then I looked on Twitch, and I was like, oh, Rocket League streaming. I wonder if it's a college Rocket League or something, because I've been seeing that once in a while. And then it says OCE Major, and I was like, oh, I was ready to watch this tomorrow because it's Friday night. Um, and then it's like, oh, it's Saturday for them though, so that was fun.
Top 8 teams making it through. The out of the top 16 were Renegades, Cringe Society, Ground Zero, Canberra Havoc, Mind Freak, Vort Central, Cowabunga, and Hazard Esports. And then just missing out were actually all the round fives went to game five, which is pretty exciting. Gaming Gamers, Solicit, and Team Ferox. Um, I don't know. I know something about. I watched some of Gaming Gamers, but I didn't catch any of those other two teams.
Yeah, the two of us watched the Gaming Gamers and the Hazard
Yeah.
Esports, and that was a really fun series. And
Yes.
especially once you told me the context that Hazard Esports was on their way to doing the reverse sweep of the Swiss stage, and they were going to reverse sweep Gaming Gamers in that. And then I made a joke that they're going to lose the last game, and then it was a big waste. But it was a lot of fun watching them. I think that series is a ton of fun. Like if you want to go back and watch it, go for it. That's a nice one. It's not like the top teams in Oceania, but still quality Rocket League. That's a lot of fun to watch. But I don't have much else to say. But other than that, it was fun.
Yeah, that was a really fun series to watch. And then coming into the playoffs, once again, 3 sweeps and a 3-1, much like North America. You got sweeps from Ground Zero over Vort, Cringe Society over Hazard, Mind Freak over Canberra was 3-1, and Renegades a sweep over Cowabunga. Going to the next round, and again, I'm thinking the top 2 teams are Renegade and Cringe Society. Like that's something I've noticed time and time again from the little bit I've picked up here and there. Apparently, Ground Zero, I think had won one of the regionals. I assume it was Renegades, Cringe, and Ground Zero because
I believe it was. Yeah.
no team had won more than one regional event. Because no one's BDS apparently, and so like it was really interesting to see the. Actually, I'll leave Renegades Mind Freak for a second. Cringe Society Ground Zero was pretty interesting because it was Cringe Society winning the first game, and I'm like, okay, they're just gonna, keep going and win. But Ground Zero's defense was like it was solid. They really they really just kind of they just kept the team out of their half. It was Amphis, Express, and Jules just like running around the field, making some really nice plays, taking game 2 in overtime, and then a shutout, and then 2-1. So like their defense and like midfield presence was really strong for Ground Zero, and go in on a 4-1. Mind Freaks Renegades, however, this was a weird series because again I'm coming in Renegades over Mind Freak, thinking that pretty handily. They were playing Mind Freaks really well through the first game, but Mind Freaks managed to sneak away with the first goal, and then scored another one late, I think, to take a 2-0 shutout. And then you're like, oh, that's interesting. All right, Renegades will bounce back, and then they get shut out again, and then they get shut out again. So they're 3 games in. After 3 full games, they are yet to score a goal, and then they shut out Mind Freaks, then win 3-1, then shut out Mind Freaks again. So now you're looking at a reverse sweep. We go to Game 7, and Mind Freak wins 1-0 in Game 7 to just halt the reverse sweep. So it was a really weird series because it's just like you never knew, like I never knew who was going to win any game because it was thought it was going to be a comeback, and then it looked like it was going to be a sweep, and then it looked like it was going to be a reverse sweep, and then they just stopped them in a bunch of shutouts. It was really like entertaining Rocket League, especially since I don't know the teams very well. That made it even harder to predict what was going to happen next. So we then go into the finals, Mind Freaks Ground Zero. I'm thinking it's got to be Mind Freaks after a Game 7 against Renegades and playing so well. That's where my money was sitting. And they played well. They managed, keep off Ground Zero and win like a 2-1, a 3-2, 3-1, lose one in a long overtime, and then win one in a long overtime. So all very close games. But for Mind Freaks, it had to be. Is that what's his name? Something Caveman Ben? Is that his name? Yeah, Caveman
so.
Ben was really good during these playoffs. Like I just felt like anytime they were calling his name, like I felt like I was hearing his name a lot, and very rarely it was on the negative side of things. Like he was scoring a ton of goals, especially in the finals. He was just like all over the score sheet, and so it was. He was I think my player to watch for that, like player of the day for those playoffs. A couple others impressed me as well, but I don't know. Just like I feel like in the big moments, he really stepped up when he needed to. So I'm gonna try and keep my eye a little more on Oceania. That'll do a very good job of it. Very interested to see
What's
comes next.
What's pretty interesting is I went to go check the rankings. So we were just talking about how double the points we get for the fall major. Mind Freaks' victory put them 1 point ahead of Cringe Society.
Wow.
So they're at 1252 and Cringe is at 1251. So.
Jeez.
And then Ground Zero and Renegades are both tied at 1201. But there's such a gap. There's basically a 500-point gap between 3 and 5.
Jeez, yeah. It's okay, yeah, we can see who won it here. Cringe Society won the first regional, Renegades won the second, and Ground Zero won the third.
Yeah.
So, and then that fall major, Mind Freaks getting 702 points to Cringe Society's 400. Like that just shows Ground Zero got 500.
Ground Zero got 500.
I was just looking at second line, but I mean that's 201 point difference just winning that final game, and 201 points separates them from being first or being fourth. Yeah, so I'll have this graphic up on screen as well, showing the OCE teams, sure. And you can see there a lot of the teams we were just talking about: Mind Freak, Cringe Society, Ground Zero, Renegades, Gaming Gamers, who we were talking about I didn't even know they were this good. I just they were a good team, but fifth, Vort, Canberra. I mean, I guess obviously all these teams are good if they made it to the major. But yeah, as you can see, not nearly as many teams for OCE, so it really makes it obvious who the top couple teams are when there's a much smaller pool. But it makes it very interesting because you see a lot of rematches and you see a lot of you get a lot of pools to pick from for watching the same teams play each other, which I think is an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I also left out that the South American regional, they're doing it the same way as the EU and North America. They're going to give them a week's difference, I believe, but they're the day before for their major. And I'm looking into them, and then their top team is 11's Esports, and it's a British esports organization co-owned by Gareth Bale, who
nice
plays soccer. Which is it?
Looking at the OCE, because we're talking about how the teams for North America had to make it through. Meanwhile, you look at like the teams that made it through on the major, like Good and Useful, only got 70 points. Same with Southern Stars, they got 70 points total. They made it to one regional event and made it through to the major, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, and Cowabunga.
Yeah. Oh, Cowabunga. Oh, yeah, they only got 70 as well. They just made it further. So
yeah, so it's pretty interesting to see that, but
yeah,
I think that's all we have for today.
Yeah, that's everything. that's everything for today. Wally, thanks as always for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and then we'll do this all again next week. I know I said that 2 weeks ago, but then we had a change of plans, so we will be back next week. Is next week you said is the so we're going to be covering the Swiss stage for both North America and Europe for the fall major. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for
Thank you.
listening. All right, that's all for today.
See ya.
Bye.